When you see how many people are still living with anxiety, it gets discouraging. But think about it. How many of these people have really tried to beat it? Are they still living with anxiety because it can't be beat or because they haven't made the right effort? When you look at the comments on anxiety support groups, count how many of them actually talk about solutions. Now count how many of them look like this. Be honest with yourself. How much time out of your day do you spend actually looking for solutions? We are spending too much time discussing anxiety and what it's doing to us. It's important to understand anxiety, yes, but how many times do you need to ask other people if they also get anxious in grocery lines or at parties or going on job interviews? After a while, you're just going in circles. You're just socializing. You're not finding solutions. We live in an age where you can find solutions to almost everything on the internet, but how many of us actually look? I hate when people talk about managing anxiety or managing their anger because that indicates that you just are always going to have to deal with it for the rest of your life. And that doesn't have to be the case. Look, there are like 8 billion people on Earth and we're all different. So do I think it's possible that some people could have some genetic predisposition to have anxiety? Sure. But I also know that a lot of people think they are stuck with some genetic curse and they just give up trying to fight it. I know because I was one of them. I was completely convinced that anxiety was just part of my DNA and I just had to live with it. And I was wrong. It's important to mention that my anxiety was a severe case, so severe that it caused the muscles around my bladder to tense up and I felt like I had to pee all the time, a condition called Levator syndrome. I was watching Beavis and Butthead in my 20s, and there was an episode where they were working at some fast food place. There were all these cars lined up outside honking their horns because Beavis and Butthead were working so slow. And then it showed Beavis and Butthead, and they were laughing. They didn't care that the customers were lined up and impatient. I got so anxious watching that scene that my stomach was in knots. You know when you get that really bad anxiety and you start squirming in your chair? That was me. I had to change the channel. This was from watching some stupid cartoon. And remember the show Cheaters? I couldn't watch that because they would go to confront the cheater at the end and I would just about have a stroke. Anxiety ruined my life. It was so bad it caused cognitive problems. I lost so many jobs because I'd get nervous and I couldn't think straight because my mind would be racing from the anxiety. My best way to describe it is like this. If you walked up to 100 people on the street and told them to name 5 presidents, most of them could probably do it. Now walk up to those same 5 people, stick a gun in their face, and say, name 5 presidents or I'll kill you. And a lot of them would have a serious problem doing it. When 5% of your mind is on the presidents and 95% is on the gun, you can't think straight. And that's how we feel, like there's a gun constantly in our face, always in danger. When your mind is constantly under that level of stress, you pretty much spend the whole day unable to process information. It affected my job, school, college, conversations with friends, learning to play the guitar, everything. There are people who have this medical condition called congenital analgesia, where they can't feel pain. If I can believe people have that, I have to believe there are people who have some genetic condition that causes them anxiety, depression. The problem is this, there's no physical test for it. You can do a blood test for diabetes, you can do a biopsy for cancer, but there's no physical test to see if someone truly has a genetic disposition to anxiety or if they just ended up with it because of their life. A lot of anxiety was caused by the things that you went through, so you learn to be anxious. It's a habit now, and you can learn to be different. I see people complain and complain and complain about being anxious. Oh, this is ruining my life. I can't live like this anymore. And you have the right to complain if you have tried everything to fix it. I thought I would be on medication forever. Now I don't even get anxious over things that the average person gets anxious about. So let's talk about what I did to beat it. Number 1, exposure therapy. When you do something over and over and nothing bad happens, your mind finally gets a message that there's nothing to be scared of. But many of us avoid the things that give us anxiety, so our brain never realizes that there's nothing to fear. Most people are terrified the first time they drive a car on the highway, but eventually it doesn't bother us. We get used to it because we do it over and over, and most of the time nothing bad happens. I forced myself to do things that make most of us anxious. I would walk up to people in Kroger and I'd say, my wife just left me. She took the pool table and she doesn't even know how to play. The first time I did it, I was terrified. That is a ridiculous thing to say to a complete stranger, and that would make most of us very nervous. But I kept doing it, and eventually it didn't even bother me. Nobody yelled at me, nobody punched me, nobody called me a weirdo. Could that happen? Sure, but it's not likely. And the more you do it, the more you realize that. Now, this part is very important. After I did it, I would come home and write about it. It still works just doing the exercise by itself, but when you write about it, it works even better. Because when you write about what happened, your brain is processing that information even deeper. And that information is nothing bad happened. Today I went to Kroger and I told a man that my wife left me and took the pool table and she doesn't even know how to play and nothing bad happened. He said, "Wow, I'm sorry." The next man laughed and the next man looked at me sort of weird. But so what? Some guy I will probably never see again thinks I'm weird. And if he sees me again, what's he going to do? For all he knows, I was dared to say it by a friend. Or I could have been loopy from muscle relaxers. That happens to people all the time. Or I could have said it because I was trying to beat my anxiety. The bottom line is it doesn't matter. Look how many famous people have embarrassed themselves in front of millions of people. And you know what? They found a way to move on from it. Number 2, distracting yourself during anxiety is a bad thing. It might take your mind off the anxiety for a few minutes, but you and I both know it will be back because anxiety is a habit. Break the habit. Our goal is to end anxiety, not just sweep it under the rug for 10 minutes. Anxiety automatically comes up when you are in certain situations and sometimes when you just think of certain things. Years ago, I was at a red light. I looked over and I saw a school bus beside me. Boom. Automatic anxiety. It's a habit. I saw the bus, thought back to being in school, and was flooded with anxiety. This happens in a split second. It's a habit. But you can form new habits and new thoughts. I saw the bus, automatically had anxious thoughts, and felt anxious. What I started doing was challenging that thought. Because if you don't challenge the thought, your mind will just accept it as being right. So the next time you have that anxiety reaction over anything, I want you to tell yourself the word wait. Just think the word wait. And then ask yourself this question. Should I feel anxiety? That is a school bus, but I'm not in school anymore. I am years and miles away from those kids that used to mistreat me. They can't do anything to me now. You talk yourself out of the anxiety logically. Let's try another one. Remember when I said I got anxious from watching the show Cheaters? When they would confront the cheater at the end, I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I couldn't take it. So imagine I'm watching Cheaters. They come into a bar with the cameras and here comes the woman who is being cheated on and she's mad and she's grabbing at the other woman and she's throwing drinks at them and I start feeling anxiety, right? So what do I tell myself? I tell myself the word wait, or I think the word wait. Should I feel anxiety? These people are on TV. They can't hurt me. Those drinks aren't going to land on me. They have crew members there who will grab the woman if things get too violent. Plus, this is reality TV. They just want enough violence to put on a good show. They probably won't let anyone get really hurt. And if they do, this was probably filmed weeks ago, maybe even months. It's not live TV. Whatever happened here, it's over by now. You can do this with any situation, because once you stop yourself and take a good look at the anxiety you're feeling, you will see that there's usually no good reason to feel it. But that is the trick. You have to stop and look at it every time you feel the anxiety. And we usually don't. We feel the anxiety and we just want to run or hide or cry or scream. If you do what I just told you every time you feel anxiety, you will start to form a new habit. That's just how human beings are. Whatever you do over and over becomes a habit. Number 3, explain it away. Just like you did with the exercise, except this is with writing every day. Does that sound like a lot of work? You can spend 10 minutes a day doing this. All you have to do is write about something that made you anxious. This could be something from years ago or now. And then look at what you wrote, think about it, and ask yourself if it made sense to feel the anxiety. Should you have felt anxiety? Let me give you an example of something I wrote about. When I was in high school, I always felt like I was a target because I was short. I felt like being short made me stand out and caused people to screw with me. As I was writing about this, I realized something. I knew other short people in high school who did not get screwed with. What was the difference between me and them? I wrote about it and finally realized they didn't feel self-conscious. They didn't walk down the halls with a terrified look on their face like I did. How you feel about yourself shows on your face. When you feel like you stick out and you think everybody is looking at you, you walk around with this freaked out look on your face, and then everybody does look at you. Go to the mall and look around. You see short people all the time, fat people, ugly people who don't care, and they just walk around like everybody else. If these people are just as short as you and just as fat as you and just as ugly as you think you are, then why isn't everyone staring at them? Because they don't have that nervous look on their face. I only realized all this after writing about it. The more you write about your experiences with anxiety, the more you will start to see how messed up your own thoughts and actions are. And once you change those thoughts and actions, your anxiety will start to get better. I'm going to make another part to this video. I want you to try the things I've talked about here. And I cannot repeat this part enough. You have internet access, which means you have access to tons of free information. There are meditation videos, websites that talk about anxiety, free hypnosis videos. There's a lot of stuff out there that you can use right now. Stop waiting for some doctor to cure this when there are so many ways you can help yourself. It takes effort. It takes time. And if you're thinking, oh, this is going to take so much time, think about how much time you've wasted being anxious. Think about how much of your life you have wasted being anxious. And think about the life you could have if you didn't have anxiety.